At 14 years old, you found out what
yes.
the illness was.
Yes.
And it was the most severe form of epilepsy.
Yes, it's called grand mal.
Mm-hmm.
It's severe, it would be lifelong. It's, I can't describe it medically, but I tried in the book just to use a medical phrase,
mm-hmm.
Which I can't remember now, but it was, it's something shifts in the brain temporarily. Yeah. It's often associated with very high-flying people. I mean, they're people who are prone to visions. Yeah. My mother moved into the religious life because she was a visionary. But, you know, medical people would say, oh, well, of course, that's part of the illness. But I think that's a reductive thing to say. My mother's visions had content in the way that, you know, Dostoevsky had epilepsy. Yeah. And he wrote a novel, The Idiot, which was about Prince Mishkin, who's an epileptic. And they're marvelous descriptions of, they're lyrical descriptions of being more evolved imaginatively than ordinary people just before a fit, a seizure. Yeah. So he was epileptic, Julius Caesar was epileptic. In Julius Caesar, Shakespeare writes about the falling sickness. That's what it was used to be called. And Julius Caesar actually refers to it when, before he's murdered, he refers to having it and apologizing for the fact that he's foaming at the mouth in the marketplace. People who have it are aware that it's very unsightly. And I found out about it because my mother showed me her poems, and I thought nothing of reading a poem that was lying unfinished on the table when I came home from school. Mm-hmm. And there I saw the word, she'd written down the word epilepsy, and I was old enough then, it suddenly flashed across me, that's it. That's what's the matter with her. Everything fitted into place.
Did you feel like there was a weight lifted off your shoulders?
It was, because I realized it was a physical illness, mm-hmm. and that my mother didn't have to struggle to overcome it. I mean, it was a misfortune she had it. Mm-hmm. But by then, you see, when she wrote the word, I was 14. So it meant she, by then, knew what her illness was. Mm-hmm. So she told me afterwards that it was the hugest relief when she demanded of a doctor, in fact, her brother, her elder brother, he was in Johannesburg, and she'd had a very bad full-scale attack. And she wrote to him, she'd been alone, it was dangerous for her to be alone. Maybe I was asleep at night. And she said, you must come down from Johannesburg and you must tell me what's the matter with me. And she wrote this beautiful letter, which I put into the book. I mean, it was a dignified letter. And she told me it was the hugest relief to find that it wasn't a threatened mental illness, and she didn't have to try and control it. She simply had to take the medication. And from that point, she took the medication, and it changed her life. She was able to, I mean, people can control, epilepsy can be controlled. Mm-hmm. So people can go out and lead a normal life. And my mother then she had greatly regretted not going to university. So she began to be a mature student, and she studied Hebrew because she wanted to teach the Bible, and she wanted to read the Bible in the original. And her other major was her natural subject, English literature. Mm-hmm. So she went in her late 30s, early 40s, at a time when it wasn't yet fashionable to be a mature student. She felt very awkward.
She sounds like campus. A very strong
She
woman.
Was strong. She was both frail physically, and she was very thin. And often felt poorly, but she was also very strong, and she was very charismatic as a teacher. So in her earlier years, she wanted to be a poet, and that's the story I chose to emphasize, because it meant a lot to me, because she was reading in a way that was very exciting, stimulating, and also I was very captivated by the problem of a woman here in the 40s and 50s, where nothing was expected of you. I mean, some women who were poor had to earn a living, and my mother was the wife of a lawyer, so she didn't have to earn a living. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't easy to do what you're doing here. you know,
Right.
have a profession,
Right.
have a career. She longed for that. She longed for work. And in those days, work was seen as pitiful. My father had a very high-flying secretary, Mrs. Swan, and he always said, oh, Mrs. Swan is always a lady. She's very intelligent. He was defending her against, well, it was, you know, you were regarded as lower class if you worked. I mean, things utterly changed for my generation. We wanted passionately to work and to be in the workplace, and it was completely different.